Thanks everybody for joining us today. We are here to present to you a webinar based off of how to work with Workplace from Facebook and SharePoint together and enable powerful new ways of working with SharePoint and Workplace to your benefit. So I'm going to introduce myself quickly. My name is Jack Hamwee. I'm a Workplace Community Manager over at LineZero, and with me is my colleague Jamie, who is a Chief Digital Officer over at LineZero. And I'll pass it off to Jamie to kind of give a little introduction.
Thanks, Jack. Again, great to have you all here. And I think I see some familiar faces from previous webinars. Really appreciate you coming back. Hopefully that means that there's some value in these for the new faces. I hope that this will be a good use of your time. At LineZero, we are a workplace experience organization. We try and focus on, really enriching the employee journey, the employee experience, and that's both, from a digital culture perspective as well as from a communication side of things. And we understand the, the intersection, if you will, of modern HR and comms and technology. And so for today, that's really going to be the heart of what we're going to be talking about. So from an outcome perspective, and usually we like to do this just to make sure that we're aligned and that you can get a sense for what we're trying to accomplish, let's say. And while the little animated GIF plays in the background, which really I think is demonstrating the SharePoint and Workplace integration, for us, it's really understanding, and I alluded to this before, it's, we know that many organizations that work now, they have a heavy investment most of the times in our experience with Microsoft, and that there's probably continual questions that say, well, how can we continue to leverage the investments that we've already made in technology, and how can we use those to augment additional investments we make in tools, for example, like Workplace from Facebook? And, are we able to create an intersection of those two tools that helps to, continue to extract value from tools like SharePoint, as well as provide, additional context and additional things. So hopefully today's time with us together, you can see a couple of use cases specific to the intersection between SharePoint and Workplace from Facebook.
Thanks, Jamie. So before we get to the overall outcome later in the presentation, which is the ultimate objective for today, let's take a step back and dive into a little bit about Workplace. So the question here is, what is the power of Workplace? Workplace is a platform that connects everyone within the organization and elevates that connection employee experience, as well as corporate communications. So these 4 items that you see here are really Workplace's superpowers, and they work together hand in hand to make a large organization or company feel smaller and more in tune with company information and news. So the beautiful thing about Workplace is the simplicity of the platform, as well as a high adoption rate. And it has a familiar look and feel to the everyday communication tools we use in our personal lives. So everyone in your organization can use it, and it's a very accessible platform. Today's webinar, however, is going to dive into understanding the outcomes Workplace can provide and how you can leverage Workplace to use other tools like SharePoint, which enables businesses to simplify their processes and enhance the employee experience. So the message here is that Workplace will provide you with a vehicle to get the content, spark two-way communication, improve the overall employee experience, and build meaningful communities to create alignment, boost morale within teams, departments, or geographies, and also upskill your people. So a little later on in the presentation, we will introduce the outcomes both Workplace and SharePoint can provide. But prior to that, I would like to introduce the question of what is the power of SharePoint? So what is the power of SharePoint? SharePoint is ultimately your one-stop shop to house all company-related information, whether it's HR communication, safety manuals, templates, etc. It's also a great resource to create content and tools for your organization with the ability to have real-time collaboration on all materials present on SharePoint. The tool will help businesses simplify functions by providing easy access to files and the sites that you have from all your devices. So basically, anywhere access is provided while also having the ability to protect your work and ensure that there are security controls for your resources and your internal resources. So additionally, it's basically a tool that will help organizations level up your content management and surface it up and ensure all the right information is up to date through seamless interaction with the content. Now, Workplace, like I said earlier, is basically your system of engagement and that vehicle that allows you to easily access the information on any device, while SharePoint provides those robust features, as mentioned, like data repository, collaboration, a central source of information and tools, and allows your information to not be static. What it does really is in turn of being static, it's going to create your information and make it dynamic through the capability to change data and information over time as new information or processes become available and things change and adapt over time. So many organizations today, they use SharePoint and their teams work better, they work faster, and they work smarter. And in summary, like I said, SharePoint provides user access to create files and folders, store them, and find them with ease after the fact. And Workplace is then used to share those documents with your organization by leveraging the tools on the platform. So it's our goal today to really allow you as the listener to understand how they work better together and come together, and I will pass that off to Jamie to explain further.
And actually, before you leave this slide, I think if we go back, I come from a very long history, let's say, of inside the Microsoft ecosystem, and I can, date myself way back to doing very early deployments of SharePoint. And SharePoint was always going to be that kind of that utopia tool that was more than an intranet. I think the early, use cases was, let's look at SharePoint as an intranet replacement or as an intranet solution. It's going to be the place where we house all of our content, but also a place that's going to be a hub where everyone comes, they all get together, they stay up to date. And I think to a certain extent, there have been some instances where I've seen that be successful, and other instances where, where quite frankly, that wasn't necessarily the case, where SharePoint, it didn't fulfill the engagement component of the solution. And I think as we look at the next slide, Jack, really where we can think of it is, and I used to describe this on the SharePoint side, is SharePoint really as a tool is a really great system to help create content. It's great to help store content. It's also great to find content, right? Like the indexing and stuff within SharePoint, it's gotten a lot better. Early days was just not very great. But recently it's done a good job of making all that stuff more accessible, especially across the whole Office 365 ecosystem like Teams, etc. And underpinning all of that, obviously, it's secure, right? It follows and is in line with all of your corporate guidelines around compliance, information security, etc. But as I alluded to before, it's not necessarily the greatest platform to share content. So if you're looking to make content be accessible to everyone in a platform and in a format that everyone can get to easily, especially, let's say, for example, frontline workers who may not always be at a desk, who may not always have access to, let's say, a rich PC to use a browser. They're going to use a mobile app. SharePoint was never really, it's gotten better, but it still has never really been that accessible platform to help share content wall to wall within a business. And I think this is the intersection here, right, where SharePoint still allows you to follow your corporate IT security guidelines, create, store, and find content, i.e. really collaborate on the message that we're trying to create, and then effectively share that, via Workplace with the broader community, and kind of have that in line and interlaced with, broader communication tools or broader communication strategies, et cetera, but have that content live in SharePoint. So I've used this diagram before in a similar capacity when speaking about Teams and Workplace, and I think a lot of the same analogies apply here when we look at SharePoint and Workplace, in the sense where SharePoint really is that system that does collaboration really well, right? It's where you can do your document data governance. It's where you can do your enterprise content management. It's where you can do all of the stuff that you would normally do around being effective and efficient from a productivity perspective. I mean, this sits in Microsoft's productivity ecosystem. Whereas, what Workplace really does well is the employee engagement, company-wide comms, and really the frontline worker engagement, so that all of your employees can get the right content and the right message at the right time, and in a format that kind of meets them where they are, doesn't force them to use or adapt to a different system. And so when we think about these two tools together, the opportunity they create is to actually allow us to, let's say, digitize business processes, so we can begin integrating workflows and stuff that we do within SharePoint and surface that up in Workplace, as we know that that's the tool that our team and employees really use to engage and capture the content we're doing, and really define the content that matters the most. And I think to kind of help illustrate this, I think, sometimes visuals, we're all human creatures that use pictures, I think, far more effective than text. So I'm going to turn it over to Jack, and we'll kind of walk through a visualization, actually in platform, to kind of demonstrate when these two tools do come together. Before I do, just a quick ask. I see that Holly has made it, kind of put the ask out there. If you do have any questions as we're going along, more than happy to answer them in line and in context. Sometimes if we kind of wait till we hold our questions until the end, we may not remember them, or that contextually they'll make not as much sense. And I think as we get into Jack's piece, where he's going to do a little bit of a demo and show the tools working together in action, we may get some questions. So just open invitation. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have, and we are more than happy to answer them. And with that, Jack, over to you for a day in the life.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. So here, as Jamie mentioned, I'll be introducing a short little demo on how to use these two platforms together. And before I do that, I would like to reiterate that we are trying to really streamline Workplace to be the gateway to other platforms like SharePoint. So by using this integration with SharePoint, the users will not need to leave Workplace to access the documents, which provides them with an intuitive interface to easily find and work on their files, while leveraging SharePoint's powerful collaboration functions, such as co-authoring, while also having a conversation around those documents using the Workplace functions like sentiment analysis, understanding how employees react, or if we need to make changes based on, let's say, feedback presented. So in this day in the life scenario, we have a communications director who has been working in the background with company execs to introduce a new powerful tool for performance management within the organization. So with the idea of, the future is now, and remote work and the digital world accelerating really fast, the company felt it was the best time to roll out the tool and wanted to utilize Workplace as well as SharePoint to do so. So the communications director was informed by the execs to lean heavily on working with department team leaders to review the tools and documentation and the training resume, collaborate in real time to ensure all documentation is ready to be distributed across the organization, and then utilize Workplace to announce the news, the timing of the rollout, as well as spark discussions among teams on the new platform for performance management. So I'm just going to unshare my screen here and set up the demo quickly. So after receiving the news and direction to make the announcement using Workplace, the comms director logged onto Workplace and created an eye-popping post, as you see here, that the company is thrilled to be introducing the new platform and some key features it will be providing, like 360-degree feedback and goal setting and tracking that can happen all on one platform. So the messaging here was to get the company excited about the new changes and to give them a heads up that more details will be coming once they were fully prepared to launch the platform. And the comms director in this instance utilized the create a post feature, used a GIF, used some bolded text to make sure that the right message was being portrayed to the organization that, this is coming, stay tuned. Now, based on the recommendations from the executives to lean heavily on department team leaders for the rollout, the communications director then transitioned into another group called the Performance Management Updates and Announcements Group. And basically, this group included all team leaders, and she used this group to create an announcement that some collaboration tools are going to be needed, and these documentations that were housed on SharePoint are going to be needed for the rollout. So the director wanted to make sure that all eyes were on the documentation around SSO logins, so single sign-in logins, as the director was not the most tech savvy and needed other expertise on the document to be able to provide the right content. So the document housed on SharePoint was embedded directly into the post, as you see here, to allow for easy accessibility for all the team members to go on and make changes where they see fit. So for those of you who are familiar with Workplace, this is a very familiar screen to you, but effectively we have utilized this group that is centered around performance management and the project that we are rolling out. And we have invited all the members, as mentioned, to this group to participate in the rollout. Now, one of the things we need to do here is allow people to participate securely. So we got some policies that IT wants us to follow to access the new platform and perform some single sign-on steps to ultimately do this. So they've created a document that they would like people to follow, as mentioned, in order to configure the SSO login so that they're able to access the tool when the time comes. So now on the communications team perspective, we want to be able to look at this and see if the documents the IT team has produced meets our standards as well. So as a comms team, we know that there are some technical responsibilities on our end we need to follow from a security perspective, but we want to make sure that the message is in sync and also speaks to the opportunity we are presenting around performance management. So we see here, we have the performance management group. And if I scroll down a little here, we can see, as I mentioned, it's embedded into the post. And what Workplace does is when that happens, since we've configured the integration between SharePoint and Workplace, we're actually able to see a preview of the document embedded in the post. And this is actually really helpful in a sense, because it gives people on the communication side of things an initial look at the visual view, being visual creatures and all, and wanting to see that right off the bat. And it gives you a real quick sense of what this document really is. So now as a comms person, I can click on the document, let's say, and you will see that it will actually take me directly into SharePoint, where I'm able to make a couple edits. So let's say I add branding is needed for this document. And basically, I'm able to make a couple edits as we would like to potentially brand the document, for example, and make the document a bit better and, add visuals or make it more appealing to the human eye. So basically what I'm trying to do here is bring the document into alignment with our branding guides. So the SharePoint integration, with that, I'm able to, do that right here in real time, while others like IT personnel can also update the content at the same time while you're doing this and make it, make the content easier to follow, make sure that the procedures are right and in place. And once that's done, I can quickly close the document. So if I close that document, and now I'm back in the original group with the original post. And you'll notice that this image won't necessarily update based on what I have done. However, if I click back into the embedded file, you'll see that the changes that I made in terms of branding is needed for this document have been applied, and they'll still appear and be in state. So the other interesting thing about this integration, if I go back to here, is if we're looking at this in the context of a project team, or let's say a closed group for this instance. Basically, let's say we have a number of files that we want to collaborate on in real time, and we want to make sure that the project team has all eyes on those files. And so if we go to the files section here, this is shown within the closed group that the file section really provides us an area where we can view a whole number of documents that were uploaded over time in the group, and creates a real easy way to find all the content that was shared within the group over time. So one item of importance I would also like to share is Workplace will identify whether or not you have uploaded the file via SharePoint, or let's say, does it live and breathe within SharePoint? Is it housed within SharePoint? And then you can also see if it was uploaded from, let's say, a file on your desktop. And you can see it through the nomenclature here. So you can see that it says SharePoint there, and then Workplace to indicate that it's through the desktop. Now, all this really means is that I've effectively uploaded the document from my computer into the Workplace group, and it is now static content. So what I mean by that is, if I open this up, so you can see here, I'm not able to make any edits to the document, making it static. I can't make any in-text adjustments. I'll only be able to leave comments on what I think I should do. And then, I have to effectively download the document, make the changes, go back into Workplace, and then re-upload And then, that is just not, in my opinion, an efficient process to deal with, as it could be time consuming. So not only that, if I did it that way, I'd also have to go back into the files tab and also delete the previously used files, so I don't scatter documents and cause recreation and confusion, which also shows how inefficient this process could be, and how it exemplifies a terrible user experience. So this also limits Workplace into being a place to just post finished and published content, which isn't as useful for working groups. And then with the ability of SharePoint and the integration of SharePoint, you'll have the ability to have that content, be dynamic, edited on the fly, in real time, and edited as policies change, technologies change over time, and you won't have to re-upload anything. It'll stay there. You can edit it, and then it's good to go. So if this is where we're going to collaborate on the performance management rollout, we can see that we've got the links here to the SharePoint components and all that we need to, make sure this rollout happens effectively. So now, above all that, we actually can find a folder for, let's say we want to create a repository for more than just Word documents. We have a bunch of other static content like videos, guidelines, templates, whatever the case may be, stored on SharePoint. And we can use this linked folder feature to make it easily accessible so people can see where the link is through the folders option here. Again, if I got this project to roll out this project management tool, I'm able to pick and choose how I want my content to surface. And do I want this to be collaborative? Is there an abundance of content I want to share? I basically have that freedom and the integration to either link a folder through a post or through a link. So you have that ability to choose between the two. Now, once changes were made, the team leaders utilized the post to update the director and let them know. If I go back to posts, so you can see here on the original post, there was a comment made, and basically they utilized the post to update the director and let her know that, the changes have been made, the branding is good to go, and it's now ready to go, and we can start launching this rollout. So now what the communications director did was go into the company announcements group from prior, where she used a post to get the excitement across. And basically, she was given the green light now from the team leaders to push through the rollout, and went back to the company announcement group, as mentioned, to introduce the tool to everyone in this post here. And, just mentioned to the whole organization that, it's ready to be utilized across the organization. And she also imported that SharePoint folder that I mentioned earlier into the post to show everyone, what types of reviews each individual will be required to undergo on a yearly basis, including, self-assessments, team performance reviews, whether it's quarterly, mid-year, or annual reviews, and so on. So this kind of ties back to what I discussed earlier about the beauty of linking folders. The comms director was able to provide an ample amount of context within the folder by a click of a button. And, if this post were, let's say we forget to pin the post, or, mark it as important, and, new content starts to roll into the group, and, this content gets pushed down a bit, down the ladder of all the posts coming in, it'll never get lost in terms of the folder and the files that were on the post, because the everyday employee can just go right back into the files. And you can see here that the folder that we linked to the post appears here. And then if I click into it, you can go straight to the SharePoint view and review all the steps to perform all the reviews needed for the performance management tool. So the excitement has now been generated through Workplace. Instructions on next steps have been, provided for team leaders to efficiently roll out the tool. We've used SharePoint and Workplace to our benefit to not only collaborate in real time, but do it efficiently. And this is one of many scenarios where you can utilize Workplace and SharePoint together and all the positive features they both bring to the table. So one thing that we've gotten feedback on over time is when users go to find content or shared documents housed on SharePoint, it might not be the easiest thing to find the link. input the link into SharePoint and find the actual document as you kind of have to go back and forth between the two applications, like I showed in the demo. Now, what we've done to counter that is work with a few customers to build a bot that helps with the file selection process to make that process a bit more in state. So the ultimate goal here was to eliminate context switching, as the less productive we are, the less productive we are, the worse off we are. So the whole idea behind this bot was to reduce the amount of times you switch between SharePoint and Workplace and decrease the content or the context switching to increase the user experience on Workplace. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video. So as mentioned, sometimes we get questions about bots, and this is a good example of how a bot can make that experience simplified and easier for the user. So the bot surfaces up via Workplace and is very similar to a chat support bubble, where you can communicate with the bot in the chat through either your phone or on the web. And it's a chat that is similar to a conversation you'd have with your everyday coworker. So when you type in the keywords as shown, in terms of what you're looking for, the bot will then communicate with you back and forth and ask if this is the document or file you're looking for. Is this not the file you're looking for, and so on. So all the governance and collaboration aspects you expect from SharePoint will shine through this bot experience. And the ultimate goal here is really trying to surface up and simplify your ability to access any of the content on SharePoint via Workplace. So with that being said, we'd really love to work with you and figure out how we can partner together to bring this functionality to life within your business. And I will now pass it off to Jamie to provide more content behind that.
Thank you. All right, so just on to a bunch of quick next steps. As wonder if you can hear some of the racket in my back in the background for my girls. So a couple of things, right? So from next step perspective, if you are already working and have Workplace in place and you already have SharePoint, please, and if you'd like us to spend some time and actually configure the integration for you between Workplace and SharePoint, let's say that's not already done, we will allow, or we will offer up one attendee on this call who does not already have that configuration set up, and we will work with you to do that. Or if it is already set up and you'd like to optimize that configuration between SharePoint and Workplace, then please just go ahead and type your email address into the chat. It will only show up to the panelists, and that will just let us know that you might be interested in a bit of work together around the SharePoint and Workplace integration. If you're not using Workplace yet, obviously that's no problem. Happy to work with you to actually kind of bring that to life, help you figure out how to integrate an engaging communication platform into your productivity workflows, and then obviously help you get to the outcomes you're looking for. So with that, we will open it up for questions. I know we're just about at time, so if there are any questions, obviously happy to help, or sorry, happy to answer, whether that's specific to SharePoint and OneDrive, SharePoint or even OneDrive for that matter, and it ties into Workplace. And yeah, I'll just pause here. I did not see any questions kind of come in state. Just checking real quick. Perfect. So I haven't seen anything come in. I will wait for another minute or so to see if there's any last minute questions. I will make the offer. If you do have anything that you'd like to ask us specific to that, you can just email us at engage@linezero.com, and happy to answer any kind of questions that kind of pop up in light bulb moments, so to speak, that happen after the webinar is complete. And looking forward to working with you. Thank you so much.